A public health concern. How safe are you in terms of the food that you consume? It is a simple question, but the answer is so difficult to answer, especially with the outbreak of anthrax here in Ghana. Officials continue to manage the situation, but the minority in parliament is indicating that they will need resources to fight the outbreak, which is significantly very low now and may not be enough to effectively prevent the spread. One person has already been confirmed dead after consuming some anthrax-infested cow meat. So let's start from Parliament, where the minority there has been raising concerns about the management of the latest outbreak of anthrax. Minority MP for Napdam, who's also a member of Parliament on the Health Committee, Dr. Mark Ketwani, wants the issue to be addressed.
This outbreak is about the whole region. It is about where the meat supply of this country. I'll say that about 40 to 50% of the supply of animals to the slaughtering houses in Accra, Kumasi, etc., are coming from that end. And so we should not take it for granted. If in the north, yes, the animals are dying, when we don't take time and we get these animals to the southern sector, where when they come in, they are just slaughtered and eaten, it means that we will have a lot of human cases when it gets to the southern sector. What is happening is that even though the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, through their veterinary services, and the local government ministry have come in and they've put in some measures, it appears that they are not putting in enough resources to curtail this outbreak. You know, to curtail the outbreak, we need to vaccinate the animals. We need to fumigate their stalls, their pens, or wherever these animals are living. We need to do it. We need to prevent the movement of animals from one end to the other. All these measures have to be done, and it requires resources. As I am speaking now, in the Tenancy district, the district assembly itself has spent about 16,000 Ghana cedis to purchase 8,000 doses of the vaccine to vaccinate the animals. But what do we see? This is not enough. We know the common fund is not coming. I have to say that we don't have to take this thing for granted. When it gets to the animal to human transmission, and a lot of human beings get it, and we start transferring it from one person to the other, then we are in very, very bad business. It's a very serious situation, and we shouldn't let it get to that stage.
The lawmaker himself, who's a medical doctor, has an advice for his kinsmen, asking them to stop certain cultural practices which spread the disease faster.
I also take this opportunity to advise my brothers and sisters from Upper East. The funeral season have just ended, and I'm sure this is why about 3 people have died from this anthrax. During our funerals, we usually, as part of our custom, we kill animals to see our beloved ones out or buried. And after killing these animals, we don't eat it immediately. We leave it to be lying outside. We leave it, sometimes it is hanged on a tree to be shared among families. Sometimes it can take 8 hours. Sometimes it can even take up to 24 hours before this meat is shared. And I believe that this practice should be stopped. We should first and foremost try to kill the animals under hygienic conditions. Secondly, we should share it immediately after killing them. And it should be under very, very hygienic conditions. that we should carry out this activity. Yes, it is our custom. We do it every day, depending upon the status of the man in society. You could get even up to 10 or even 15 animals killed, cows, sheep, goats, etc. killed. But we should make sure that when we do that, we should immediately share it and eat it, or boil and eat it. And this practice where some people eat raw meat should stop. Considering the impending epidemic that we have, it should stop.
Well, so that's the concern coming through from Parliament. What's being done to contain this very reports that we're hearing of? Let's speak to Dr. Benjamin Kisisasu, who's the Deputy Head, National Food Safety Lab of the Veterinary Services. Thank you so much, sir, for spending some time with us. First, there's a need for us to get some updates on even the reported cases of anthrax here in the country. How are we faring, first of all, as a nation in terms of the case count?
Great. So currently in Ghana, we only have one region having this issue of anthrax, which is the Upper East. Just that from the district that started from Binduri, we have had additional districts in addition. That is about 10 more districts joining, but all in the Upper East. It was unexpected because looking at the practice in terms of our animal production system, they go for grazing. So they may move from one community to the other. That's why our first release cautioned or called for ban on movement of animals within those affected areas. And we are happy to say that so far so good. The outbreak is only in Upper East, and we are hoping it still stays there. We have had this type of animals be involved: cattle, goats, sheep, and pig. The highest among all has been that of sheep, being 49 out of 90 animals being affected, followed by cattle, 34. Then we have goat, 5, and have that of pig, 2, making a total of 90 so far. And all the districts, as we all know, has been the district found in Upper East. Bindu, which started, had still the number of higher cases, and it was just from the first initial cases it has gotten. It has not had repeated cases. What has been done is the vaccination. And as at yesterday, 13th June, we have 21,263 animals vaccinated against anthrax. The good news is that Veterinary Service for many years have had a vaccine production unit, and one is at Pontamale, which is a central veterinary lab, and they already had stock of them. They weren't free, people were paying for them. So when it came to this issue, as you know, assemblies have to look for money to do so, and the ministry also considered how to get them for us for free. If we got to the state of importing, that would be a big issue. But we have the capacity, and we are producing a lot of these vaccines. We have a lot of vaccines in stock. Out of the 21,263 animals vaccinated, we have 6,987 cattle vaccinated against anthrax, goat 7,304, sheep 6,471, and we have pig 501. And so far, more vaccination is going on, and as we speak, is going on. A strong team of delegation have left Greater Accra as that Monday to visit the place to interact and make sure we contain the issue in Upper East and not get more districts joining in. And we have had suspect cases in other regions, which we have checked, and it wasn't so. We still want to advise the public that as they are doing, they should let us know about any suspect cases when animals die or get sick. They should still alert us.
But the general public you're talking about would definitely need to know the extent of infection, and even generally speaking, how damaging this virus can be. What's the mode, first of all, of transfer, and what could be the possible effect on any individual who contracts the disease?
Okay, so anthrax is a bacteria. This is a special bacteria. We call it Bacillus anthracis. It tries to survive in the environment by forming a spore. A spore, we want to mean that it forms protective coat all over and can stay in the soil for decades. Averagely, by research, 60 years they could stay in the soil. And for humans, for us to get it, unless we are taking it in through the food, being milk, being the meat itself, or we have breathed in through inhalation the spore, then we could get this. But most common cases so far per research or per case that have happened has been through the injection, and that of the human case that we had was through injection in Ghana. So sad that we are in June, and every 7th June is set aside for World Food Safety Day, and the month of this month, which veterinary service was using to pay, used to advise the public. We have had this case coming out. It's so unfortunate, but it's also come to underscore the need to inform the public about the need of food safety in regards to animal food products. And when it comes to anthrax, we want to let people know that you need to get your animal food product for approved sources. So you come from a slaughter facility and your milk. Those are things that we need. For animal to animal transmission occurs very fast. And for farmers or people who keep animals, we want to tell you that the animal that we have one day or in the morning get up, you see standing dead, become bloated, and we have bleeding coming from the natural orifices, especially the nose. And all this, when it happens, you are not supposed to open the carcass, quickly call the nearest veterinary office to come to take charge of the carcass. Remember, when you then open this carcass, the environment gets contaminated. And as we said, the spore is able to live 60 years in the soil. If you decide to bury it yourself, you may not do it in a proper way as the veterinary service together with animal, together with the environmental health people will do.
We'll talk about the opportunities available shortly. There's a question about resources, which has had some minority members of parliament raising concerns, for instance, about how you're not sufficiently equipped, retooled, or perhaps giving enough budgetary support to fight this. How urgent will that need be? Great.
Just yesterday, the minister launched the enhanced plan for food jobs. We had got a new minister, with Honorable Brian. He was communicated about the issues and already before the outbreak, he had taken update, or he has taken stock of our assets and what we need to do in terms of staff strength and equipment and restocking the lab. All these things were on before this occurrence came. So quickly, he is currently attending to the issues of resources to contain this issue. And as I said, a strong leadership have left Accra to help. Though initially certain items or logistics have been sent, they have gone to look at it. And there has been also committee at national level to look at educational materials and how to inform the public and also prevent such occurrences.
Have you been able to track the source of this virus?
Currently, they have had some studies. It's pointing to, they feed ruminants, they go for grazing, they feed from the ground, that's the grasses. And already the spores normally are kept in the soil. Let us not forget, the northern part of the country have already from time to time been having 1 or 2 cases of anthrax. Just that this year, unfortunately, there has been human involvement. That's why much attention is being coming towards that. But the truth is that we have had 1 or 2 cases year on. So the spores have already been in those localities. But sometimes the locality people do not report. So they stick to their own bearing of these carcasses. And we are sure with the rainy season and flooding and other human activities like digging may have exposed these spores to these animals. And this have occurred. And that's why we feel after all these things, we need to throw more light about the need for people to contact veterinary service when it comes to issues of animal disease.
Let's get to that then. The opportunities for the general public to report cases and what we should be wary of.
Great. Right now, we'd like to tell people that, as we said from last week, our first update came from the ministry on the 6th of June, and today is exactly 1 week. We have been able to control it and contain it in one region, just as I've had few districts in the same region having them. Vaccination, look at the data, we have gone far ahead, so they don't need to panic. The issue is that we should continue to be reporting of suspected cases, and which general public are doing very well to the nearest veterinary offices, and it's a good thing they are doing. They should also report suspicion of seeing people trying to sell or trying to use dead animals for food or to sell them. Is wrong. Even in normal times, we are not supposed to eat a dead animal. No, it should be a slaughtered animal, gone through all the veterinary inspection and go through all the processes.
Okay.
So we like to tell the public to heed today's call and help us to do the work well.
Grateful. Dr. Kisisasu, thanks for spending some time with us. Keep up the fight. We stay on food safety. The Food and Drugs Authority is encouraging food consumers to patronize food outlets that have been accredited or certified by the authority. The Director for Food Safety and Consumer Education at the FDA, Faustina Atopra, says the move is to help consumers to avoid contaminated food on the market. She has been speaking at a National Food Safety Lab Forum organized here in Accra.
National Food Safety Laboratory organized an open forum and a panel discussion under the theme Food Standards Save Lives as part of this year's World Food Safety Month celebrations. The discussion focused on the role of stakeholders in regulating food standards across Ghana's food value chain. Director for Food Safety and Consumer Education at the FDA, Faustina Atopra, urged Guineans to prioritize food establishments with FDA accreditation to ensure their safety and the quality of food they consume.
We also do inspections of food service establishments. This includes restaurants, canteens, chop bars, and the likes. And we inspect them to ensure that they comply with the good hygienic practices. And then when they comply with the codes of good hygienic practices, we issue them with the food hygiene permit. So when you enter any restaurant, the first thing you should look out for is the FDA's food hygiene permit. And in our letter, when we approve your facility, we indicated that you should put it at a very bold area so that consumers can see it and be assured that, hey, this restaurant that I'm eating, I'm assured that their practices have been well monitored and then they are in line or they have complied with the codes of hygienic practices. So please check the food hygiene permit. It's supposed to be at the more likely the reception or the more prominent place, and you see the hygiene. Once you see the hygiene permit, you know that.
Vet technologist Claude Otu strongly advised consumers to ensure that they purchase meat exclusively from authorized butchers in order to avoid the consumption of contaminated meat.
Yes, like I said, it's continuing education. The public has to know their rights and responsibilities. So whatever you want to buy in terms of meat, poultry, you have the right to ask the whoever is selling where it's coming from. Where is the evidence that it's coming from this approved place? And one of the things that they can show as evidence, especially for the butchers, like I said in the statement, that there has to be a stamp. When we inspect any carcass and it's passed, we stamp it as passed. Otherwise, then they have to show evidence of their slaughter permit showing that this animal was slaughtered at an approved place, duly passed for human consumption. The public should be aware. They should know that they have the right to ask where what they are eating is coming from, and evidence to show it is coming from an approved place.
A representative from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Patrick Besse, strongly emphasized the need for farmers to refrain from using pesticides during the harvest period.
When it comes to crop production, to ensure having safe foods, especially for instance, those growing foods in the urban areas or doing the vegetables, the source of water they are using is very important. They have to make sure the water they are using is not contaminated with fecal matter that can, when they use it, can give problem to the humans. So use of quality water is very important. Another thing that they have to also consider is the pesticides use. Depending on the type of the stage of the crop and the pesticides to use, and when the crop is very close to harvesting, they should try as much as possible to avoid use of pesticides, because when they don't observe the pre-harvest interval, the number of days that it has to take for the chemical to break down before they harvest. And they harvest immediately after spraying, or just a few days after spraying and sending it to the market for consumption. They are killing the society.
This year marks the 5th edition of the World Food Safety Day, a day that has been set aside to draw attention to foodborne risk and emphasize on food security. Esther Nkrumah's report, read to you.
And back here in Accra, the country is for the very first time implementing the close season at the same time with its neighboring country, Cote d'Ivoire, to help build the country's depleting fish stocks. 3 other countries, Togo, Benin, and Liberia, are expected to join Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire to implement the next close season. That's according to the Fisheries and Aquaculture Minister, who has been addressing the press today.
The scientific working groups have recommended that the close season should be implemented between the months of July and September, which coincides with the spawning period of the fish stocks. This ensures that the fish spawns at least once in its lifetime before caught by the fishers. Thus, in the past 2 years, the close season has been implemented between July and August. Friends of the media, the close fishing season has always been implemented through strong stakeholders' engagement with leaders of fisheries associations, fishers, academia, and CSOs. This year, we met the leadership of all the fisheries associations, academia, and CSOs on the 13th of April 2023 at the Closac Hall to discuss the outcome of the 2022 close season. After thorough and frank discussions of the reports and how to better implement future close seasons, the 2023 close season was announced as follows. Canoe and inshore fishers will observe the close season from the 1st of July to 31st of July 2023. Industrial trawlers will also observe the close season from 1st July to 31st of August 2023. Let me also put on record that the tuna fleet also observe their close season 3 months in every year. To mitigate the impact of the close fishing season on fishers and processors, the ministry during the 2022 close season distributed 20,000 bags of rice and 8,333 cartons of oil to support fishers and the fish processors during the closure. As a way of reducing pressure on the fisheries resources, the ministry and its partners, including the Ghana Fisheries Recovery Activity, has launched the Alternative Livelihood Training Support for fishers, starting with 550 fishers in masonry, carpentry, dressmaking, hairdressing, electronics, and auto engineering, etc. in selected communities along the coast. This training will be scaled up to over 8,000 fishers, and after the training, trainers will be supported to set up to ensure that they can earn incomes from their trade. Furthermore, it was agreed again at our 13th April 2023 meeting that gains from implementing the closed season will be eroded if we all do not collectively combat IUU fishing activities. The ministry will therefore continue to empower the fisheries enforcement units to curb any illegal activities. Some of the new measures that the ministry has put in place to combat illegal fishing are as follows.
indications from the Fisheries Ministry, but how will that impact the sector? Let's bring in some of our guests who are helping us with the conversation today. Emmanuel Kwame Dovlo is Director of Fisheries Research at the Fisheries Commission, joining us via Zoom. Thank you for your time here on the Pulse. And I'm just first of all going to pick up on the issue about alternative livelihood for persons who have set out to be fishermen. I mean, it's as though we're asking them not to fish at all. Is that the case?
No, not really. Not really. But we are looking at the fishers being able, within the close season, to do some work, that can earn them some income for that period of time. Yeah.
Now we're, for the very first time, doing this with our neighboring countries. What's the scientific benefit of having, for instance, the West African coast, i.e. Togo, Benin, of course having the likes of Cote d'Ivoire join this joint close season? Is it the case that it will have a significant impact, or perhaps there's some more of a political angle to what's happening now?
Yeah, actually, when we take the small pelagics, we call them migratory or straddling stock. So we find them in these 4 countries. We talk about Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana here, Togo, and to some extent Benin. So if we can close the season with our neighboring countries, then we are looking at protecting the entire fish stock. So basically that is what we are doing. And if you look at the stock, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire hold over 90%. So Cote d'Ivoire coming on board is a very significant achievement for Cote d'Ivoire to get on board with this close season.
How are you involving? Yes,
secondly,
yes, if you may.
Secondly, when close season is implemented in Ghana, we realize that the canoes, they move to the neighboring countries to fish. So now that Cote d'Ivoire is joining, then they won't be able to go and fish there. And we are looking at protecting the gravid fish for the entire stock. And that will increase the yield of the stock. Thank you.
I was just about pointing to the fisher folk and how you're involving them in all of this process, because they are a critical stakeholder in ensuring that the reasons for which you set out this close season will be achieved. Have you engaged them already? Have you taken note of some of the concerns they have?
Yeah, we do engage the fishers all the time. At the moment, the ministry and the commission, we are implementing fisheries co-management policy. And within the co-management, there are structures where all stakeholders in the fishing industry are involved. We have one we call Science and Technical Committee. And in that group, we have the academia, the University of Cape Coast is represented, University of Ghana is represented, we have the National Fisheries Association of Ghana, the NAFAC, we have the inshore, we have the artisanal, we have the trawlers, we have the tuna. They are all part of that committee who sit down and look at the scientific data and we analyze it together for them to bring in their traditional knowledge, which is very, very important. And then we have the Fisheries Management Operational Committee that basically looks at how the fisheries management plan can be implemented. Over there too, we have all the stakeholders involved, particularly the fishers, even including the fish processors, because they all hold very important information. And then we are now looking at forming what is called Small Pelagic Fisheries Co-Management Committee, which will be at the various landing sites. That will also involve the fishers. So in effect, we've also conducted stakeholder engagement. We met at closer call in Accra here on the 13th of April, where the results of the 2020 close season was presented to them. They were happy and they agreed to the close season. So basically there are so many avenues and ways that we've always engaged them. And the position of the ministry and the commission is co-management. We've moved away from the days where we do top-down approach. Now we take the stakeholders, particularly fishermen, their views and their ideas, everything into what we are doing.
Okay, that's good to know, but then you're still being criticized by some stakeholders, in fact, including some political figures as well, accusing you of being fixated on the small-scale fisher folk. Pet trawling appears to be the biggest challenge of the industry, and you're criticized that you're not able to take these institutions, these vessels, strictly to what the law demands. Why not focus on that sector and leave out the closed season for the small-scale fisher folk?
Yeah, from our records and for your information, at the moment, there is no pet trawling ongoing. But I believe you are talking about the industrial trawlers. Yeah, and currently, since last year, what we've done is to bring what is called Ministerial Directive on Trawl Gear, where we have tried to streamline and regulate the size of the net that they are using to fish. And as at last November, we only give license to those vessels that have adjusted their net or modified their net so that they can fish responsibly. So at the moment, only few of them are operational. And we expect that as the rest are able to meet the requirements concerning modification of their trawl net, we will grant those ones to license.
But you agree it's not just about the net. There are concerns about some more practices still in the sector. For instance, light fishing, I should say. And some of these practices that still go on. My concern is about being hard on these relatively larger vessels. Because they are foreigners, it appears we're not able to take them on.
Yeah. Talk about light fishing. The Commission has a division called Monitoring, Control and Surveillance Unit, which monitors and enforces the regulation. Aside that, we have what is called Fisheries Enforcement Unit, made up of the same Monitoring, Control and Surveillance Division, together with the Ghana Navy, together with the Marine Police, together with the Attorney General's Department. And they are always on the ground. Whenever we pick intelligence, we make sure that the Navy, the police, together with our protection officers, the MCS, they move to that particular place and they make sure that the culprits are done with. So we have a firm hold on this thing, on the illegalities that are going on.
Okay, anyway, let's talk about the science and what this science is and data is telling you about the effects of the closed season. This is not obviously the first time you're running this. You've done this in the past and I'm running a number of years. What do you have to say about the impact, tangible ones, that the fisher folk are able to easily point out to and to say, well, this is a good approach?
Yeah. When we look at the closed season, yes, we've done some scientific assessment of the work, and we presented this. Even today, we did it at the Ministry of Information. If we look at the information, basically, they are in two parts. We have the socioeconomic aspect, and we have the pure scientific aspect, that's the biological studies. So when you look at the socioeconomic aspect, basically, we look at the well-being of the fishing community, that's the households. And we've realized that after closed season, the community seems to be better off with respect to their food income, as well as issues, like balanced diet. Yes. So the only aspect now is trying to increase the alternative livelihood approach and making sure that more of them are able to engage in this line.
How about the catch afterwards?
Yeah, the catch afterwards are usually high. And we presented this morning, yes.
I see. Human rights has also come up on top of some of the concerns within the sector. The issue about, first of all, involving minors when it comes to fishing. Are you paying attention to some of these issues as well?
Yes. Our Monitoring, Controllers and Surveillance Division, yes, they handle all these issues. All issues that has to do with illegality on vessels, all these issues are handled.
We're looking forward to the timelines that you'd be putting out for this year's season. What's the timeline looking like? And are you varying that for the various categories of vessels that you're dealing with?
Yeah. The timelines are for the artisanal and inshore, that is the canoes and the small boats, the wooden boats. They are going to observe the close season from the 1st of July to 31st of July. And then the trawlers, the industrial trawlers, they are going to observe it from the 1st of July to 31st of August.
So let's take that date again. So this is supposed to be for
2023. Okay. So for 2023, we are looking at the artisanal and the inshore fleet, observing their close season from the 1st of July to 31st of July. And for the industrial trawlers to observe their close season from the 1st of July to the 31st of August.
So
the tuna
is that to suggest
observe their close season?
Right. So is that to suggest that after the 31st of July, you would allow if I could refer to them as a small-scale fisher folk to go on and carry out their activities while you still maintain the ban on the bigger vessels?
Yes. After 31st July, the smaller vessels, the canoes, they will start operating. Their close season is just 1 month. Yes.
Anyway,
the reason why we extended for the industrial trawler is that basically we are looking at 3 months period from July, August, and September. This is the period that the fish breeds. Yeah, and this is the beginning. So we started with 1 month for the artisanal. And for the trawlers, the industrial trawlers, they have been observing 2 months since 2016. So basically, this is the position of the ministry and the commission now concerning the closure.
If there's a message for the fisherfolk, those who still cannot see the benefit of why you're carrying out this closed season, what message will that be?
Okay, then let me clearly move into the second part of the explanation on the benefits of the closed season. So we did biological survey where we bought fish from 4 stations: Keta, Tema, Elmina, and Sekendi. And we pick data from it. We measure the length of the fish, we measure the weight of the fish, we take the weight of the gonads. When I talk about gonads, I'm talking about the weight of the eggs and the sperm. And when we did analysis, we realized that before the closed season, what we saw was that there's a term we call gonadosomatic index. It's a term that refers to the readiness of the fish to spawn. So we realized that before the closed season, if you take April, May, June, those values are high. And then from August, September, October going, you realize that values go high, meaning that these are the period, including July, that we need to protect them so that they can at least give forth to at least an offspring before fishermen can capture them. Yeah, basically, when we talk about closed season, the point here is that the fish should be able to spawn before it's captured so that we will leave, it needs to leave a generation behind. Let me put it that way. So we have engaged them and we've shown them all these results and they are very happy. And there are instances that we've met some of the fishermen who have praised what we have done. Formerly, we used to have very good sizes of sardinella in the period December, January, which is a minor upwelling. For some time now, we were not seeing it until we started implementing the closed season. And the fishermen can attest to it, the sizes of round sardinella that they are capturing during this minor upwelling season, that is usually December ending and then January. So the fishermen are seeing these benefits. And in the socioeconomic survey that we did, we realized that majority of them support the policy and they think that it will help improve the fisheries.
Okay, we wish you all the best. We'll wait to see what the outcome will be. Thank you. Sedov, for spending some time with us this afternoon as well. The Association of Bulk Fisher Importers, they are threatening to hit the streets should government fail to address their concerns, which they say is gradually killing their businesses. According to the fish importers, there's about some 75% issues in terms of importers that have folded up due to huge losses incurred since the beginning of this year. Joining Systema correspondent Elvis Washington has the rest of the story.
The Bulk Fish Importers Association, which was formed with a membership of about 40 companies from inception, is now left with only 15 companies operating within the industry, with 25 companies folding up. Reason being the high cost of imports levy and high duty at the port, coupled with other unfriendly charges that has crippled the fish industry. They complain to Joy News that in recent times, fish importers in the country have had to compete unfairly with unscrupulous persons who have flooded the market with the influx of smuggled frozen fish and meat from neighboring countries like Burkina Faso, La Côte d'Ivoire, and Togo, among others. The spokesperson for the association, Alfred Fugairi Kulderu, noted that the situation, if not checked, will soon render all bulk fish importers jobless, as they would have no choice than to shut down their cold stores and lay off workers.
So because of the low charges of in Ivory Coast, which is about 21%, most of now the people dump the fish there and they come through the borders. Yes, because now most people now will send their vessels to Côte d'Ivoire. Then from Côte d'Ivoire, people will now bring them into the country, not even only in the country, not even only in Tema, which is affecting us, but now spread across the country. So when we are pushed to the corner, we have different steps we need to take if it comes to that area. And when the right time comes, we'll definitely let that be known, which include demonstration.
Some fishmongers and operators of small cold stores at the Tema Fishing Harbour also added their voices to that of the bulk importers and agreed on staging a demonstration to press home their demands.
Things are very costly. We can't buy because even in the harbor, in the main harbor, the duties on the goods that are being imported, they are too much that we cannot even buy the goods. Costs are going down. Everything is costing. Let's take a salmon of 10 kilos that we used to sell 1 million, 110 cedis and 120 cedis before. It's now 320 cedis. And if the customers come, they cannot buy because the thing is too costly. So we are pleading with the government to reduce it. If not, we will go hungry. And if we go hungry, there will be more chrono in the country. So you have to tell the government to do something about it. Our big men who are in the main harbor, they will put all their everything on the thing. The duty are too much that the people cannot even pay for the duties. So for that, they have to import from Benin, Côte d'Ivoire, Togo before we can be able to sell fish here.
Pacho say hane dia ne boy e din ma yenti ene bi obi ko Côte d'Ivoire ko fa na mo ba na se Ghana de ye tumi to Ghana de no a obi tumi ko Côte d'Ivoire ko fa na mo ba first Ghana na ma na ye rom na se say Ghana de na ka fa ye tumi nto nti se wo re wo tumi na Côte d'Ivoire de na bo wo fo mu a wo no ba ko fa ba no abeton
Côte d'Ivoire ni nam na aye fo se Ghana de na because ho no mu no Ghana for no tumi free hand ko Côte d'Ivoire ko fa na ma de ba abeton wa ha se so and I say no banya no falase ha no mu but no duty no bo na America kra ena Togo ha no kra no mi no omoko Côte d'Ivoire ko fanam ena omoko Togo ha ko fan because omo nyina omo say free duty nti ho no so omo ban so omo de ba wo ye ni so ya no falase Ghana for no de mo ba omo no nyina ne bo ko soro costa bebre gugu bebre mi ka no ha no kra no costa be 5 ni nyina ye djuma so ye kura de se na kura ya djuma no kura ye so obi sa bo boss no kura ba kan kire ye djuma no kura ye.
Samson Asaki Awingobit is the Executive Secretary for Importers and Exporters Association, and he also has this to say.
Ivory Coast has also built one of the biggest ports. And so we can no longer say, so we have a competitor. And that competitor cost of doing business is far, far lower than even what we do business here. If I were to be government, I'll rethink again.
Meanwhile, the Association of Bulk Fish Importers say several letters written to government corridors have yielded an insignificant response.
Petitioned our stakeholders, Ministry of Fisheries, we have petitioned the Minister of Finance, the President, the Chief of Staff. As at now, we've not. If you go to the harbors, the imports have really come down.
For Joy News, my name is Elvis Washington, reporting from Tema.
Well, so that's the concern of the bulk fish importers, but the Fisheries Alliance is calling for a reform that will, of course, inure to the benefit of Ghanaians as Ghana prepares to run that close season. Joining us now is convener of the Ghana Fisheries Alliance platform, Kojoche Yamwa. Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
It's not an entirely pleasant situation to find a country reliant on importation of fish, for instance. We need to be sufficient, but you're saying there's also a benefit when it comes to importation.
Yes, the most important thing is that fish is food, and the fish being available is also food security. You know, when you buy your kenke and then your fish is very expensive,
right,
then it affects everybody. And also fish is one of the cheapest source of protein, so we need to make it available. Most importantly, Ghana has been importing fish for a long time. Now we import more than what we produce locally. The important thing is that in Ivory Coast, they've been able to manage their fishery sustainably. So now they have more fish landed. That means there's more supply of fish than the demand, so the fish price goes down. In Ghana, we are not getting much fish, so the prices of fish have gone up. That is why when people go to Ivory Coast, they can bring in fish even at a cheaper price. So it is very important to understand this economy of fish. But towards close season, it is good for government to look at ensuring that there is adequate fish for the consumer. So that is why these challenges and bottlenecks relative to bringing in fish from other neighboring countries must be looked at, especially during the period of close season, so that the average consumer can have the fish available. Then we must be looking at the medium to long-term effort, including the close season and other fisheries management measures to bring in more of the fish. That is important, especially for what we are able to land locally. But what you are able to land locally depends on how much fish is there in the sea in terms of your available waters. So I also think that is a welcome news that our neighboring countries in Ivory Coast are supporting us do close season at the same period. We are hopeful that in Togo, Benin, and others will also support, because in previous close season, we have had few fishermen moving out of Ghana and then fishing from those countries. That is not so good, because their fellow counterparts or fishers in Ghana will be staying at home. So it's important that we understand this mechanism. The other point is that, yes, we support the close season is very good. We also encourage government to be looking at fish harvest in terms of the juvenile landings in the artisanal and the inshore sectors. That includes the fact that we must ensure that our fishing mesh size, the nets, are regulated effectively so that the juvenile fishes, include the baby fishes, are not harvested immediately after the close season, so that those that are recruited into the system are able to also grow, and then we can also let them, spawn and then reproduce. So addressing the issue of gear size is very important, the mesh size of the fishing gears.
I was asking the question about why we're not staying on bigger vessels, because the concern from industry players is that they are mostly at fault, because we don't have an effective mechanism of checking them.
There are mechanisms of checking them, but in most countries there are challenges. The sea is wide and open, and you need a lot of eyes and ears to be able to monitor. And that is why we commend the minister for the bold effort in the ministry for going. It's a commitment which is very important for the electronic monitoring system, where we can have videographic, photographic evidence, so that you can have more eyes on the sea and to look at the operation of the trawl sector. What is also most important is that the enforcement agency, that's the Fisheries Enforcement Unit, the Marine Police and others, they are very committed. What we need to do is to resource them and support them to be able to do their work. That element is very important, so that the deterrence element, which include the capacity to see who is doing wrong, the capacity to arrest, and then prosecute them rightfully within the ambit of the law, would ensure that there's deterrence. That means that it will put people in check, and then they'll do the right thing. That element needs to be supported. And then the issue of negative interferences from political, from others, would also come down, so that when vessels are arrested, nobody goes in to try to negotiate and to try to interfere unduly. These are important elements to ensure that enforcement of the laws is very important. I really like what the minister said. She gave exact paint the picture in terms of the illegal fishing. That is a challenge. In terms of the too many fishing gears, which is a challenge. In terms of other issues, environmental issues, climate change and others. We are on course, but the most important thing is that we need to also add the additional measures and then the enforcement measure. That is very important to ensure that the close season gives us the benefits that we need.
Aside the concerns about some malpractices within the industry, pollution also appears to be a challenge for those who are fisher folk. They equally have that concern. So it's as though we're just focusing on, for instance, a close season, having a bigger catch, and not dealing with the peripheral issues.
Yes, the environmental factors is important, the climate change, and then plastic pollution. Issues of plastic pollution goes beyond the Ministry of Fisheries. It is a multi-sectorial approach that is needed. The local government and the district assemblies address issues of sanitation, but we have noticed that the volumes of plastic entering the ocean is a major challenge to fisheries, because it affects the fish population, and even fisher folks are affected because most of them, they launch their nets and then the plastic population is more than the fish. And it even goes beyond government to all of us. How we dispose of our drinking bottles, how we dispose of the plastics that we use when we go to the supermarket and then we buy things. So proper waste disposal and behavioral change by the citizenry will do us a lot of good. Even though it's a global challenge, but for developing countries like Ghana, when you see the volumes of plastics into the ocean, but even before they enter the ocean, they cause the floods, they destroy properties and humans. And it is because the drains are choked with these plastics. But they eventually wash off to the ocean, and then they also form interactive with the marine biodiversity and others, and also limiting fish production and other environmental functions and services that the ocean needs to provide for us. And these are issues that we need to look at, and then do more sensitization, education, and enforcement.
But in terms of enforcement, you have, for instance, the marine police still having their challenges as well. If you have that happening, enforcement may be a bigger challenge.
What is most important is that once the institutions are in place and they have the capacity, the competence to do it, that is the first step. The second step is the resources. And that is why we call for political commitment. Political commitment is in two. One, if you are committed, you put in resource. The second is that if you are committed, you also prioritize and you promote. So we need a political commitment to ensure that...
Yeah, but where do we get the funding from?
The funding is very
that's
important.
been a challenge for many governments across.
The funding is very important. One of the few things is that when you do fisheries enforcement effectively, in the beginning, it pays for itself. Because when fishing trawlers are fined for engaging in certain kinds of illegalities, the minimum fine is $1 million.
Really?
And the fisheries enforcement unit, when they even find one vessel and have that $1 million going to them, they are okay for the entire year. So if we would stick to the laws and work on them, and ensure that the prosecution and others are as per the law, will have issues. But as we speak now, no vessel has been able to be fined and prosecuted, go to the system and pay us that $1 million.
And maybe that's because of this thorny issue that those we send to monitor are not even treated well, they're not paid well. So there could be compromise, perhaps.
Yes, there could be compromise in terms of observers and others. That is why we have advocated for removing the human element and bringing electronic monitoring and others. But the reports that they also give, acting on it and ensuring that there is successful prosecution has also been a challenge. And that is why we have not been able to get any vessel to pay us this $1 million and others. And in other countries, because the fines are working, the courts are working, the monies come in, and then the enforcement agencies are able to use them. So fisheries enforcement, when you work on it, medium to short term, you will always have the paying back.
Yeah, but
after some
we've
time,
not been doing that as expected.
Yes, we have not been doing that, and it's very important that the prosecutorial actors are also brought to the fore in terms of the judiciary, in terms of those who sit on adjudication of fisheries cases. That is a very important element. Without that, we may not have the commensurate compliance, because when people are caught and they do not go through the process and they can easily pay, they come back to do the illegal
And going forward, your alliance deals much more within the space, so you know the fisher folk, you know those who deal in the vessels. How are you collaborating with them? The close season is upon us.
Yes,
will they comply, first of all? Is that what you're picking up from
Yes, close season will have close to 100% compliance. Our point is that the other measures that need to be put in place so that the close season gives us the maximum benefit to ensure that after the close season, illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing is stamped down, prosecutorial process is strong, that anybody engaged in illegalities is duly dealt with, and then we have the necessary deterrence that we need. That is very important. Then other measures can also put in. These are very important measures to support us, revamp our fisheries sector, to maintain the multitude of fishers that are engaged in fishing. And most fishers have large number of dependents, children, wives, and others. So we're looking at large population of Ghanaians who benefit from our fisheries sector, and we need to maintain them as such.
Okay, Kojo, thanks for joining us. I'm looking forward to the $1 million.
Thank you very much.
We'll get to that, definitely. You're watching The Pulse. We'll be back. When we return, we have a lot more stories for you. Please stay. And it's good to have you back here on The Pulse. Inflation for the month of May 2023 is up, hitting some 42% from the 41% recorded in April, with food and non-alcoholic beverages driving the upward trend. This of course, end of the 4 months downward trend enjoyed by the country since January this year, after reaching more than 2 decades of a high of some 54.1%, which happened last December. Government Sanitation, whereas Kobena Nim has been indicating that the development shows that food is still expensive here in the country.
Protection 53.4%, and food and non-alcoholic beverages 51.8%. All 4 divisions recorded rates of inflation higher than the national rate of inflation. On a month-on-month basis, keeping in mind that the national month-on-month rate of inflation was 4.8 for the month of May 2023, we again identified 5 divisions that recorded rates of inflation higher than the national average. This was led by personal care, social protection, and miscellaneous items that recorded the highest divisional month-on-month inflation of 7.0%. We turn away from the levels of inflation and from the 13 divisions point of view, identify the divisions that are contributing the most to the rate of inflation that was recorded for the month of May 2023. Across the 13 divisions, top 3 items, namely food and non-alcoholic beverages, housing, water, electricity and gas, and transport, almost contributed 3/4 to the overall inflation, with food and non-alcoholic beverages contributing more than 50% to the rate of inflation that was recorded in May 2023. Specifically, food and non-alcoholic beverages contributed 52.4% to the overall inflation recorded in the month of May 2023. This was distantly followed by housing, water, electricity and gas that contributed 13.1%, and closely followed by transport contributing 9.2% to the overall inflation that was recorded in the month of May 2023. The division that contributed the lowest to inflation in May 2023 was insurance and financial services, that contributed 0.1 to the overall inflation for May 2023. We turn to the food inflation, given its dominance in terms of its contribution to the overall inflation. It will be recalled that food inflation contributes, the weight of food inflation is 43.7% to the overall rate of inflation. So we look at the trends in the levels of rate of inflation and the share of food inflation to the overall inflation. Since January 2022, it peaked in January 2023 with a rate of inflation of 61.0%. This is more than 3 times the rate of food inflation which was recorded in January 2022.
Well, there are some fascinating figures and trends coming up, and of course, what you need to know is that there's a lot of dynamics to all of these that's happening. Isaac Ofieje with our research team has been looking at the figures so far, and the indication is that there are some specific commodities driving this faster. Let's look at some of them.
Well, so I'm looking at the top 20 of these items that we are talking about. They are not necessarily the key drivers, but they are also items that can help further policy considerations, and they are at the national level, so it is a national issue. Yeah. So these are items that recorded inflation rates, all of them recorded rates above 70%. So if you look at an item like palm oil, inflation is 100%. Mind you, the headline figure we are talking about is 42.2%. So if you should have a single item also recording inflation rates of 100, it tells you that it is actually an outlier. There's herrings, smoked herrings, which we usually call amane.
I see.
81.7%. Sanitary pad, 78.9%. Baby food, 76.8%. Dog meat.
Yeah.
Is 76.5%. Ice
The percentage point is quite interesting, though. 76.5%.
It's been in the top 20 items for the past.
So it's fair to say now that Ghanaians prefer dog meat to ice cream.
Oh, not necessarily, but it just tells you that if you compare the price of dog meat between this same period that we're talking about, May 2023 and May 2022, the price has actually gone
up.
So
it's higher. The price is higher, but consumption.
Consumption, it could be two things. It could be a demand pull factor.
Yeah, precisely why I'm asking the question, because if there's demand for it, we know that there's a relationship between demand and then supply as well as pricing.
It could also be a supply challenge.
Could it be the case that more people are going in for dog meat, and that's why they're experiencing it?
Yes. If you are looking at
it, never used to be on.
It never. This is the first time that it is featuring dog meat and palm wine, and I think even ice cream. This is the first time these 3 items are featuring on the top 20 items that the Ghana Statistical Service have been categorizing. But just like I said, it could be a demand situation or a supply situation.
I want to go.
So maybe
a lot more people are buying.
Yeah, we have to go into communities or markets where we can find dog meat and then do a survey and see what is really costing.
You know a place we could buy one?
Well, not really. I'm Adventist, so dog meat is not really my thing. But it's a special delicacy for some people, and some people say it's very nice. So. For it to be 76.8, it should be a worry to
and let us not fall into temptation, I guess. That's your prayer right now. But okay, so let's look at some of the other items on this list. You're talking about sanitary pads, ice cream, there's palm wine.
There's palm wine. Palm wine is the first time palm wine is making the list. So we have 2 palms.
I guess is becoming
there's palm oil, there's palm wine. And I don't know the last time you ate okra stew.
Yeah.
People are now moving away from using the palm oil to just doing it, the green way, where you don't have to add oil. It's just because palm oil is becoming very, very expensive. And all of this, we need background information to know why the price levels
And in fact, if you have the price of palm oil rising that much, there may be an impact on, say, the refined oil as well.
Exactly, because we use the same palm kernel to also do the oil. And other things. So it could be so many things accounting for the high,
42.2%. What's the outlook for the coming months?
Well, 42.2% is a slight increase relative to the inflation in April. I am not too surprised because we've been looking at the data and we've seen that for the past 4 months, although we have for the past 5 or 4 months, the headline figure has been coming down. But if you look at the data on month-on-month basis, month-on-month inflation has been increasing. it has moved from a negative zone now, rising into positive zone. So you usually have this reflecting in there. And then also if you have your PPI, which is the producer price index, increasing slightly, it tends to have an impact on the consumer price index.
If dog meat is up, palm oil is up, why then are people buying it? Because preparing it might be a challenge. But let's bring in Albert, who's in an area where that delicacy, of course, has a lot of patronage. Albert, you've been listening to the data released by the Statistical Service. What are you able to say about, and this is a community, we must be fair, that culturally accepts, of course, dog as a delicacy in terms of the food that you prepare there. Has it gone up, practically speaking?
Okay, so let me just say that it's not used to prepare food per se. What normally happens is that it is made just like kebab is done. So people just purchase it and they eat it. But I think that what may be causing the surge in the price could be scarcity, because let's not forget that this is a delicacy that is not really the majority of the people who consume it. The people who consume are a very small group of people. So what happens is that normally you have a situation where to get it already from the beginning is not very common. So with everything that is happening now, in terms of increasing prices of things generally, that would also have an impact. So if you go to the joints, definitely the price will go up, because now you have a situation where very few people are selling it, and even to get the dogs to prepare it for people to buy, it's not very easy. So that also will translate to the price, because then scarcity would come in. So that's what I can say about increase.
Okay.
In the last year, in Sandema, there was a news story from that area which indicated that price of dog meat had already started going up. So it is not so surprising.
Okay, so just give us this picture. How much, on the average, will it cost an individual to get dog meat or the dog itself on the market?
Okay, so what happens is that, dogs are generally pets for many people. So people don't just go sell their dogs with the aim that whoever purchases the dog will go and kill it. Normally, they sell the dog because either it is causing trouble, maybe it is too wild. It may also be that the dog is not really friendly and all of that. So people may decide to take their dogs to the markets and just sell it just for the aim of, for the purpose of getting rid of it.
Right.
You understand? So then the people who are selling the meat will go with the hope that they will find such people and purchase the dog from them. So the price of the dog will depend on the owner, maybe their reason for wanting to sell it. And then that will translate into how much it is.
Okay, but I'm sure there's an average price where they all converge and sell.
Yeah, so for normally you would hear prices like 500, 700, sometimes even 1,006 on the size of it. Now, because as I said, it is not very common. It is even for the people who sell the meat. It is not every day they are able to do it, because, as I explained, this is a delicacy that is not very common to begin with. So once he is able to get the dog and brings the meat out to sell, he is expected to sell it at a high price, because he is not assured of the next time he's able to get a dog to kill. So then people purchase sometimes for 50 cedis for a chunk, which will be cut into pieces. If you are lucky, you will get it for 40 cedis downwards. But I would say that normally to get a good price, it will be 20 cedis upwards for an individual. If you are a group, 50, 100, and then it goes.
Okay. Given the fact that the price is up, have you been interacting with some residents, persons who like this?
Yes. So at the moment, there is a ban on the sale of a lot of meat products because of the outbreak of Anthrax. So because of that, people are not, purchasing meat. And so for that reason, we haven't been able to get people to interact with today, obviously because of the ban.
I see. But maybe at a better time, we should all try this. Maybe I could move up there and we'll have this for maybe dinner. But not for now. At least we know of the anthrax in the system. So thank you for giving us the latest on that. But let's still stay up north. Let's head to, of course, the northeast region, where the woman who was stripped and abused in the Fulani community in the northeast region has revealed that 5 other girls were taken through the same ordeal by the suspects who have since been arrested. The victim, who was found Tuesday dawn, was seen in a viral video being stripped naked by some men who also touched her private parts. We have more for you. Released on this one, indicating what the situation is, and it's by the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, indicating that the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection's attention has been drawn to the disturbing video circulating on social media in which a young lady who has been identified as a Fulani is said to have been molested and manhandled. The video, which lasts for 2 minutes and 19 seconds, shows a group of people beating and assaulting a naked woman. Violence against women and girls is not justified and must not be tolerated, no matter where, how, and who committed the offense. The adverse consequences of this violence on women and girls in relation to their health, sort of psychological and emotional well-being, actually compromise and undermine their development as well. And this must be discouraged, according to the ministry. The ministry goes on to say that it strongly condemns this cruel, brutal, and barbaric behavior meted out to the young lady. This act is a blatant breach of her human rights and dignity, and thus punishable by law. We applaud the Ghana Police Service for putting out a call for a manhunt for the culprits in the case. As a result of this, the ministry is also issuing an appeal to the general public to provide some sort of information, or general ones, of course, with any lead that may enable capture the offenders. Finally, we advise the public to maintain their vigilance and report individuals who committed these unlawful acts. The public can reach the ministry's helpline as well. And of course, if you have any information as well, you can just reach out to the ministry on that. And we are your election headquarters. A flag bearer aspirant of the New Patriotic Party, Alan Kujichirmating, has called on government to review the current exchange rate regime and the country's ports to boost the productivity of the private sector and also to help reduce inflation. According to the former Trade and Industry Minister, the current regime is a disincentive to the growth of the private sector, and it is important on government for government to take a critical look at this. Mr. Chirmating was speaking on how he is going to enforce that great transformational plan which will tackle inflation during a meeting with players of Ghana's private sector.
If for one reason or the other your currency is depreciating, and you know that you have a highly import-dependent economy, in my very humble opinion, It doesn't make sense for you to apply the same exchange rate at which imports and the duty on imports are calculated. That means that just as soon as you find that the exchange rate is going down or high, those who import, and which includes not only traders, but also manufacturers, it means that they also have to bear the brunt of the depreciating exchange rate. But if for purposes of imports, you can fix a lower exchange rate, then in actual fact, you are making imports cheaper. Not necessarily to destabilize trading, but the traders will tell you that, of course, if imports are cheaper, they are more inclined to pay their duty and also more inclined to pass it on to the general public. Government, number 4, government will intervene to target directly key supply cost drivers of inflation, especially food prices. Those of you who know how we calculate inflation in this country. It's a basket of goods particularly dominated by food, which really is the key determinant factor for inflation. And that is why government has to intervene to directly target some of these supply cost drivers, particularly in respect of food prices. Government will take measures to boost food production and improve the supply chain from production to transportation to storage to preservation and to marketing. Because all these processes add cost to food prices, and that is what fuels inflation. And when government does this, it will reduce the weight and contribution of food prices on inflation. Number 5, government will create a parallel system of food storage and distribution to mitigate the effects of seasonal food shortages and excessive profiteering by food sellers.
We're taking you now to the Oti Region, where open defecation will soon be a thing of the past, as residents of the B. Godeno and its adjoining communities can now have access to newly built places of convenience as a way of eradicating open defecation in the communities of the Hohwe municipality. Ivy Sertoji reports.
According to the residents, they understand the complications about open defecation and that it does not only affect the physical health of the people but also impacts their dignity and quality of life. And so I am excited that they can finally have their own places of convenience, especially for those who may not be able to have them in their homes. The residents hope that more communities are able to benefit from the benevolence of the MP and the Assembly to help in eradication of open defecation in the communities, especially the deprived ones. Some of them have been speaking with Joy News.
I'm living in this community for over 30 years, and we have been having this latrine problem. At first, we were having some pit latrine over here, which as me and I saw, both to the residents and the children around here. Sometimes when your little child is going to the toilet, you will be afraid that he or she might fall inside the pit. So seeing this plight, we mobilize ourselves with the community leaders and opinion leaders, and we've been to the MP. So when we told him about our plight, before you know it, they've started building this edifice. Other people even thought this is a house. But when they open it for you, you'll be surprised. World-class standard, that I will not lie to you. We have not seen such things in Hohwe before. And we are very grateful to Honorable John Peter Mo for making this happen to us. Although we are grateful, we still need more of these edifices in our town because open defecation is very rampant in our area here because we don't have toilet facilities around here. So by building this, I know it's going to help stop open defecation in our area. So we need more of this so that the open defecation can stop. We are very grateful. I can say this toilet is European standard. I will not lie to you. It's a very good edifice and everybody likes it. The only problem we are having is how they will come and then make it accessible to the community so that we all will see the advantage that we have with it so that we can use it. That is the problem that we want the minister to get solved for us. And we are very grateful for him.
But it comes with challenges, because I remember the last time the municipal people were here, like the first people that are not having to do something like that. And what it brought was, see, some households are nearer to each other, and the position they will show somebody to do his own is nearer to somebody else's kitchen, or somebody else something that wouldn't want the toilet to. So it brought challenges.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest?
Right now, I don't know. Maybe we should just focus on this one for now. You come and complete it for us. That's the only thing that can help us. Yeah.
The MC for Hokwe Daniel Nobe Awume noted that it was necessary to have toilet facilities in the various communities in need of them to help them stay open defecation free communities as well as free from diseases. He has also been speaking on sanitation issues and his plans on sanitation in the Hokwe municipality.
Sanitation policy and program for the municipality. I dub it clean your operation, clean your frontage and your backyard. Because when you just focus on your frontage, what will be happening at your backyard will be something terrible. And this, I'm hoping to bring all the stakeholders on board to fashion a robust structures to make sure that for sanitation, maybe not too distant from now, Hokwe will be christened as a cleanest city within the within the region. So what we seek to do in that, I seek to imbibe in that issues of discipline or issues of indiscipline that characterize the atmosphere as far as the young people are concerned. Or you have literally young people of a little age of 13, 14, 12, littering themselves on the streets, finding their routes back home very difficult. So we try to see how I've been able to take a tour within the municipality. We call it community engagement, where there's a clear call on me to be able to fashion that. If you own a house, you have a responsibility. If you own a home, you have a responsibility. Now you can. So when you look around where we are now, you see that every place is tidy. It is to showcase an exemplary life or exemplary leadership, that everybody can do whatever they want to do once you commit your mind to it. And so for sanitation is key because it actually helps government to reduce health burdens, where people visit the hospital and there's pressure on the scheme of that's the health insurance. But when we have a healthy body and a healthy life, once people don't visit hospital, and government will be able to conserve some money for all that developmental project. So sanitation is key because it also helps to leverage my vision or my drive for tourism. Because I mean, sad to say that if you visit a beach, you are there to more or less freshen up, and you get there, what you take away, it is like you are poisoning your own self. And so once we are able to keep track with this sanitation policy that I'm coming to launch not too distant from now, I think that's largely will address the issues of sanitation.
Ivy Satoji, Joy News, Hokwe.
We take you now to the Oti Region for climate focus, where regenerative farming continues to thrive despite the unpredictable weather patterns and also replenishing rather than diminishing the resources needed for farming. This method restores organic matter in the soil, boosting its carbon saturation rate and also protecting biodiversity. On today's edition of Climate Focus, joining us is Mahmoud Nuruddin, visited a regenerative farm and reports that a substantial amount of the acreage used for the farming practices has been restored.
Clement Matumasin has just arrived at one of the plantations. Clement, who pioneered the regenerative agricultural method in Zangomacheri, believes it helps smallholder farmers to increase yield while protecting the environment.
The space is called Dream Village, and Dream Village is just basically the hub to empower young people and also the community to become more resilient in terms of food production, entrepreneurship training, and also just basically enhancing the quality of life in the rural settings. This is one of our hubs, which is in Zangomacheri. We are currently developing the next hub in Dambai. So basically that's Dream Village. It's a place where people find their dreams.
It was a dream in 2007 that became a reality 10 years later, and Clement has now produced a variety of crops and plants on his 100 acres of farmland to supply food while also regreening the earth.
Dream Village was basically born from me. I had once upon a time grew up on the street. Other people helped me to become who I am. And I realized that I also had to find a way to give back to society. And I wanted to do that through community, through storytelling, and through my sharing and interaction with several people. In 2007, I created a mural art, a visual interpretation of what I think an ideal village will look like. And through that, we started about 10 years after that, we started implementing how the ideal village will look like. And this is the inception.
The structures here are eco-friendly.
The entire concept of this place is to create systems that helps us to live together with nature. And as you can see, even our architecture is using mud housing, using eco-habitat. We try as much as possible to avoid cutting trees, planting more trees, encouraging us to live together with nature. So this really is a hub that shows that we can actually live with nature without destroying everything that comes our way.
The regenerative farming project has evolved into a hub for research and training of students to become better knowledge providers.
Some of our students graduated, they got jobs, they are all created jobs. In fact, in the next town, some of our students is also training other people to achieve their dreams. So there are quite some success stories. Besides that, we have the agroforestry demonstration farm that is still in existence, where people can learn about agroforestry or syntropic agriculture. And quite a lot of young people came here to find inspiration, did their research. So there are quite some success stories. I mean, it's not all dark and gloom. But
Clement is inspired by his previous failures and learnings. He has bigger dreams.
From here, we are inspired through the learnings and the mistakes and everything that we had here. Is what we are. To establish something like this is, first and foremost, you have to have a dream of what you want. And secondly, you have to have the consistency and the passion to develop it. Because once upon a time, I had my own job as an IT expert in Tamale. I didn't need to come into the village, struggle to drive out mosquitoes and building structures and stuff like that. But I realized that we need to create an inspirational hub to inspire young people, especially young Africans like me.
Given the variety of challenges confronting food growers in recent years, farmers want farming methods on which they can rely to produce high yields during difficult periods, such as the influence of shifting weather patterns. Clement's project demonstrates that regenerative agriculture can help farmers solve a variety of problems. He says the numbers are encouraging, as do the testimonies of other farmers who benefited from the program, such as the Moringa Mothers Cooperative.
Moringa na jumano ya sum ye huwa juma ya ne ya dua
Mariama Kwame, one of the project beneficiaries, says she is able to prepare diverse meals and meet other basic needs.
Banana.
We grow bananas, beans, and maize, among other crops whose names I don't know in English. We can now make a variety of meals.
The intervention excites a queer named Kabu.
The intervention is beneficial to us.
And restoring the once degraded area to its natural state makes Abu Mansa happier.
The area had been degraded in the past, but it has now been restored and can be used for planting.
Clement is inspired by the power of learning from nature to establish a new site for Regenerative College in Tambai.
Yeah, and from here we are inspired through the learnings and the mistakes and everything that we had here is what we are using to develop the Regenerative College. So it's an experience that we continue to develop.
For him, giving back to the society in the form of environmental protection has become his primary interest. A report by Mohamed Nuruddin.
Let's take you to Europe because air forces from 25 countries with hundreds of aircrafts are participating in the Air Defender 23 exercise in Germany. It is the largest air force drill in the history of military alliance of NATO. To get more on this, we're joined now by Brand, a correspondent with our partners Deutsche Welle, joining us from Germany, specifically Berlin. Hans, why are these exercises happening now?
They don't directly have anything to do with the Russian invasion. These exercises were planned years ago, and in some sense it's a coincidence that they are happening now. But they were planned after the invasion of the Crimean Peninsula by Russia. That was a response to, as it were, the first step in the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So, of course, in essence, they are connected to what's going on in the east of Europe, to the Russian aggression, and Russia has, in fact, responded by saying that it regards these exercises as a provocation and a military show of force that it regards as unnecessary at the moment. But obviously, while the exercises talk about a fictitious enemy in the east that is planning an invasion of parts of Germany, of course, everyone knows in the end this is focused towards Russia.
Nice. With tens of thousands of soldiers from dozens of NATO countries and hundreds of aircrafts in Germany. They're based in Germany, and many are asking why.
Well, there's several reasons for this. One reason, obviously, is Germany's strategic position in Europe. In the center of Europe, there are already tens of thousands of US soldiers based in Germany that have been here for many decades, since the Second World War. So it's the central position of Germany that's important. At the same time, Germany wants to demonstrate that it is a reliable partner in NATO and in attempts or plans to defend NATO territory. There have been some doubts about Germany's commitment to NATO in the past, and it is now trying to demonstrate that that commitment can be relied on. And at the same time, it's in some sense a signal to the German population, which has been very reticent about supporting its own army and about supporting the defense initiatives that have been taken in recent months since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. A signal to the German population that quite a lot of efforts have to be made, and Germany wants to be involved in that.
I see. We'll leave it here for now. Hans Brandt with our partners, DW, wrapping up the polls here on the Joy News channel. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. I'm Blessed Sudan. Next is Let's Talk Showbiz. Thanks for your time. We have more for you tomorrow. Bye-bye.